You're good to go.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate your flexibility, your grace, and your, I guess, the humor of this moment. I'm watching people come in. I just want to clarify something before we get started. This is the How to Navigate Local, State, and Federal Resources. This is our weekly webinar that the EDC puts on. My name is Claire Brilio. I'm the Communications and Business Disruption Resource Director for the Economic Development Collaborative. If you had RSVP'd for the Simi Valley webinar, which is tomorrow, you do not need to stay for this and participate in this webinar. We had set aside a special webinar for Simi Valley businesses just due to the size and capacity. We wanted to make sure that we were serving Simi Valley in the best way we could. And so the content will be very similar in both of these webinars, but you do not need to stay. You can if you want, you're welcome to, or you can join us tomorrow for the webinar for Simi Valley. And just getting that out of the way, you're welcome to stay though. Just a few housekeeping items. This is our, I don't know, fifth webinar here. I'm joined by the Visionality team, Emily Barony and Brianne on the back end. They are going to be assisting me with technical issues that may come up or questions. And we are going to be going through a lot of information today, a lot of content. There's about 40 minutes of content, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A at the end. If you're experiencing technical problems, I encourage you to use the chat feature at the bottom of the screen. And if you want to ask a question, please ask your questions via the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. If you use your mouse cursor, you can hover over the bottom of the screen and see that. It looks like there's about 65 people here. So I'm going to just mention this again. If you're here for the Simi Valley webinar on how to navigate local, state, and federal resources, we will be conducting, this webinar is our normal weekly webinar. We'll be conducting a separate Simi Valley one tomorrow. The content is, again, generally the same, but we wanted to provide more time for Q&A for our Simi Valley residents in a special webinar. So you're welcome to stay if you want, or you can listen twice, you can listen once, you can decide, choose your own adventure. So I appreciate all of you. And thank you again to Emily and the team. Before we get started, I just want to say the humor of this moment. Again, here we are, week 6, week 7, who knows where we are in this pandemic. And I was mentioning to Emily and the team before we got started that, this how many times today I cried off my makeup and put it back on. And I'm saying that just because, I messed up at the beginning. I canceled the webinar and it caused confusion and here we are in this moment. And we've been talking about reset and restructuring and all the things that a lot of you are having to do right now as business owners, as self-employed individuals, as employees maybe, but I just want to say sometimes you just got to start over. And after the 3rd round of makeup that I put on today, I thought I probably should just wash my face and started completely over. So I know some of us are in that position of starting over, and I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just trying to say that's where some of us are, and it's not an easy place to be. And as we go through this webinar today, I promise that the communication that I'm giving you is authentic, is as accurate as possible, considering the circumstances. I will answer your questions with candor and with a level of humanity, given the circumstances that we all are facing in this moment. So that being said, I'm going to get started. I will share my screen here and go to our presentation. And again, for questions and answers, please leave them towards the end, because a lot of this will be answered, no doubt. Oops, Brian, I stopped my video. Brian, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'll start your video again.
Thank you. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So can everyone see me and the screen? Brian, it doesn't look like, it looks like my video disappeared. I'm just gonna wait a second.
I don't know if I can pull your video back on.
Yeah, Claire, I think you need to do it yourself.
Okay, let me stop the share. Excuse me. Okay, give me 1 second, everyone. Brian, it says the host has stopped the video. So I can't start the video because the host has stopped it.
Okay, now you should be able to start.
Okay, let me see here. Here we go. Here we are. Oh, the joys of technology. We love technology. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're talking about how to navigate local, state, federal resources for employers, self-employed individuals, and employees today. My name is Claire Brilio. I'm the Communications and Business Disruption Resource Director on a good day for the Economic Development Collaborative. And I have been through now 3 federally declared disasters, first starting with the Thomas Fire, the Woolsey Fire, and now this. And I shared this with Lance from KCLU News last night. You know, this isn't our first rodeo, but this certainly is a very different rodeo than the one that we've experienced before. And I've spent the last 8 years actually with the Economic Development Collaborative serving as a small business development advisor with around 30 incredibly talented business advisors that offer free consulting services to the Ventura and Santa Barbara County area to over 900 businesses every year. Just to give you a scale of what we've been dealing with, I just want to share this, that I think it's really remarkable. We have communicated with over 2,000 businesses since March 11th, and that is just an unbelievable amount of volume for our organization in a short period of time. And it's all been around equipping and giving guidance and access to what local, state, and federal resources are available in moments of disruption. And so the first things that we always, and will continue to do so in any disruption, whether it's right now or heaven forbid a year down the road, is the first thing that you want to do is you want to contact your insurance provider. And we do have an update here for you. There's been a lot of conversation around business disruption insurance. If you have business disruption insurance, what does it mean? What is covered, what isn't covered? And we've heard from quite a few people that their insurance company has said, I'm sorry, you do have business disruption insurance, but pandemic isn't covered. Well, due to a number of complaints and conversations with stakeholders and electeds, the governor and the insurance commissioner has put pressure on insurance companies to require them to comply with their contractual obligations by law and California law by fairly investigating all business interruption claims caused by COVID-19, just as they would for any disaster. So this is still kind of a moment where we are asking our clients to file claims for business disruption if they've experienced that. And I'm mentioning that because there has been some hesitancy to do so, but I would encourage you to file a claim if you're a business. If you're on this webinar, no doubt you've had a business disruption in some way, shape, or another. I would encourage you to file a claim with your insurance provider if you have business disruption insurance, because we just don't know how far the state will actually take this, if they will require insurance companies to pay or if not. So please do that, and you can visit insurance.ca.gov for more information on that. The second thing that you need to do is to track losses. This is important in any moment of disruption, especially when it is related to insurance or seeking funding, whether it's federal or private capital. You want to make sure that you are tracking losses and you are able to understand, we'll get to this in a moment, your cash flow needs we're recommending for the next 8 to 12 months, because we don't know how long this will last. And you want to make sure that you have accurate information around all losses, whether it's production loss, employee loss, sales loss, etc. The third thing is to really look at your contracts. Do you have performance-based contracts with your suppliers? How have you negotiated those terms in this situation? And we've talking with a lot of clients who have contracts with suppliers overseas, and their supply chain has been disrupted, and in some cases those suppliers have claimed force majeure. This simply means that that they are unable to complete or meet the standard of the obligation of their contract because of some sort of disruption or act of God. So if that's the case, we do have an attorney who can help walk you through your obligations in that situation at no cost to you, if you were to call our office after this webinar. Number 4 is file for unemployment. Whether you're self-employed or an employee and you've lost hours or wages, we encourage you to file for unemployment. And as most of you know, as of April 28th, which was yesterday, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program in California became available for self-employed individuals. So be sure to visit the EDD website, and we'll talk about how to file those claims in a little bit later. Number 5 is understand your cash reserves. And this is really critical. I say this every time, but literally, this is like a stump that I will not get off of. You need to understand what cash reserves you have available, not just today, but for the next 6 to 12 months to a year and a half, depending on your business, to 2 years, depending on your business, especially let's say you're an event planning business or you're a hotel, or as we begin to roll out this re-entry into the economy, we don't know what the consumer behavior is going to be. We don't know what restrictions are going to be placed around some of these industries. And I highly encourage you to understand your cash reserves. That does not look, I mean, that can look at times like looking at your house as, you know, the mortgage on your house or whatever personal reserves you have, but that's not essentially what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your business reserves right now. We are getting closer to the time where the federal funds are going to be no longer available for quite a few people. And so we need to start understanding, you need to start understanding as a business owner, how much money do I have? Is it going to take me through March? Is it going to take me through, God, we're already in April. Is it going to take me through June? You know, how far is it going to take me? And we do have consultants that can help sit with you and walk through that so you can have a better understanding of your financial cash reserve needs. So today we're going to be talking about 5 different programs essentially, and I'm breaking these up between EDD programs and SBA programs. And I do that very specifically in these webinars because because the EDC, the Economic Development Collaborative, is neither of these organizations, and I want to make that very clear. We are a funded partner of the SBA, of the Small Business Administration, but we do not manage their loan products. We do not manage their EIDL program. We don't manage the PPP program, and we do not manage unemployment either through the EDD or any of their products. What we do is we work alongside business owners to help give them resources and access to those programs and services. And so today that is essentially what we're going to be walking through. We can answer to the best of our ability questions related to those programs and services, but not all of them. Some of them will need to be handled by a one-on-one consultation with one of our business advisors and or other people from those SBA or EDD organizations. So just to begin with, I have a background in HR, and I say this often. The EDD WORKSHARE program, which is available in and out of at any time. It's available in disruption, it's available out of disruption. Excuse me, is one of the most, I think, one of the most unknown benefits that the EDD offers. This program is essentially designed to keep retain employees, highly skilled, highly trained employees, without the need for layoff when you have production lulls or when you have disruptions like the one that we're experiencing now. And it avoids the cost of recruiting, hiring, and training new employees. And I can tell you from an HR perspective, from a recruitment perspective, that's a big chunk of money when you have to rehire someone and train them to do a job that has been vacated by someone else. Additionally, employees do not have to apply for unemployment. They'll be receiving partial unemployment benefits, and I'll go through that in a little bit. But it also allows you to gear up quickly when business conditions improve. So you can imagine if you're re-entering, reopening your business, there may be opportunities for you to work with the EDD and this program so that you can scale up instead of starting everyone at, full time, where the work, either service or product demand that your business is offering just isn't there fully, depending on how the market responds as we reopen. So this is a really good program to keep in mind. The employers must meet many requirements, and there is quite a bit of paperwork for this program. I don't want to make it sound like it's super easy. It's not difficult, but there is a level of administration that's required that's more hefty than just laying someone off. So in this situation, the employers must meet many requirements related to the health and retirement benefits. They have to keep those the same as employees that are working full time, for example. They have to identify how many layoffs will be avoided by participating in the WORKSHARE program. You have to notify employees well in advance of being put on this program, because they have to make plans, as you might imagine, for receiving less income down the road and less hours. And then there are weekly reports that you have to submit to the EDD regarding your WORKSHARE situation. So just quickly, I'm going to go through this example. This is an example of a business, and we'll call it a manufacturing plant, that has a temporary setback of a 20% reduction in whatever they're producing. So they know that they have a normal 5-day work week, and in that work week, they pay their employees $100 a day. Given that they're receiving a 20% or their production reduction is 20%, they're going to have to eliminate employees and or cut back hours. And so what they decide to do is they will reduce their employee hours by 1 day, so eight hours a week. The employee's UI benefits in this scenario, if the employer were to engage with WORKSHARE, kick in at this point. And in this situation, just for sake of example, the employee has access to $300 per week in their UI reserve, what they've paid into, what you've paid into as an employer. So because the employee's work hours are being decreased by 20%, they have access to 20% of their UI benefit, something that they would receive if they were let go 100%, they would receive $300, but instead they're only getting 20% because their work hours were reduced by 20%. So that's $60. So in this situation, if the employer was not on the WORKSHARE program and just cut the employee's hours by one work day a week, the employee would only receive $400. But because of WORKSHARE, the UI or EDD meets the employer with that extra $60. So employees work 8 hours less a week, but they are still paid $460 a week instead of $500. So that's an example of how it would work in a very simple way. In this, considering this is a federally declared disaster, the 1 week waiting period to apply for this type of program has been waived. Employees must be available to work on their scheduled workday, or these benefits are not, you can kind of behave yourself out of the program if these rules are not adhered to. Participating in WORKSHARE does reduce employee unemployment benefits, but at a slower rate than full layoff, because the employer is only taking 20% in the example that I just gave you of their full benefit. And on the weeks between March 29th and July 31st, these employees are also eligible for the additional $600 that have been given to unemployed individuals under the CARES Act. So this does layer with the CARES Act $600 increased UI benefit. So to participate, if you are interested in the WORKSHARE program, I would encourage you to visit the EDD's website or Google DE8686, which is the application for WORKSHARE. This is all done by regular mail. The EDD is still kind of catching up to the 21st century here with this program. If you need more information for as an employer, please call the number on the screen, 916-464-3343. And if you're an employee and you have questions, you can call the number on the screen below, 916-464-3300. I just want to clarify, this is not an employee initiated program. This is an employer initiated program. That means that as an employee, I'm not eligible to go to my boss and say, guess what, I talked to the EDD and I'm on WORKSHARE now. It doesn't work that way. So know that the employer has to initiate this and maintain this program with the EDD. For employers who are employers, this is just something to pay attention to. You are charged for work sharing unemployment benefits, UI insurance, the same way as you are for your regular UI benefits. So most employers don't realize that they've already been paying into this program just as they have their UI benefits. So know that there should be money available to you to use for this program if this route sounds desirable to you as you consider reopening or scaling down. The WORKSHARE benefits are charged to the reserve account of those employees under your employ during the base period that they're taking this draw. So know that that would just be like regular unemployment benefits. It's not coming from another pool of money. And for that reason, it's important to consult with the DE 2088 form. That's your contribution rate form that you receive every February from the EDD that clarifies how much is actually in that reserve account. And if you want to participate in this program, we can connect you with an advisor that will sit down with you and look at that reserve account and look at your cash flow and see how this might work for you moving forward. Okay. Unemployment benefits. Now, if you have lost, as I mentioned, hours or wages due to the impact of COVID-19, we encourage you to file for unemployment benefits. Just a few things to mention here. I know that there was a lot of communication and miscommunication, unfortunately, around the timing of when that portal opened yesterday for unemployed workers that were self-employed, so business owners and self-employed individuals trying to connect with pandemic unemployment assistance. I'm so sorry. I hope no one stayed up till 2 a.m. in the morning. I couldn't even get access to it at 6:30. So I believe they had such a high volume of people trying to apply for unemployment that their system was just completely overwhelmed, and that was in some ways to be expected. Know a few things about this program at the moment. The CARES Act increased the premium over the usual rates of unemployment insurance, and it extended the length of the unemployment benefit term. And this is really important, especially for those employers who have filed for PPP and received it. I'm going to be talking about how unemployment kind of layers into your situation a little bit later. So in this situation, the Act provided an extra $600 for a week for employees that were laid off between March 29th and July 31st, and or before that, but between March 29th and July 31st, they are given an extra $600 a week on top of their standard premium. And up in California, for a W-2 employee, that they can earn up to a $450 premium a week from the EDD, depending on their level of pay as a W-2 employee. So it's all based on a formula that I do not have access to, but the EDD determines what the employee's base rate will be, and then they will add $600 on the weeks between March 29th and July 31st. And to answer many of your questions and maybe going on in the back of your head, yes, that means that some employees can earn more on unemployment, sitting on the couch watching TV, rather than returning to work. So that is, yes, that is a very real scenario that some employers are encountering now. The additional benefit is that unemployment benefits have been extended through for a period of 39 weeks total. The previous unemployment term was 26 weeks. So to apply for unemployment, visit the EDD's website at edd.ca.gov. Now, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program is designed for self-employed individuals. So this is unemployment for self-employed individuals. It also extended under the CARES Act unemployment for independent contractors, self-employed, and business owners. We knew that was going to happen, but also people who had very limited work history, because you may have had been a self-employed individual who works seasonally, or that's come up several times. I only work, twice a year in certain seasons, or musicians, for example, who have been on the road and that are no longer on the road, or their gigs have been intermittent for a long period of time. This benefit has included them as well. So anybody who has lost significant hours or considering considering this COVID-19, they are also guaranteed up to the 39 weeks of benefits, starting with the weeks of unemployment beginning February 2nd through the week ending December 31st. So you want to look back at the calendar and look at your income and see if it decreased starting February 2nd till April 28th, or whatever day it is today. And these claims will be retroactive. So you can apply if you began to see a decrease in your income due to COVID-19 as of February 1st or February 2nd, you can apply for benefits all the way back to February. In addition to that, this extra $600 between March and July also extend to you. And again, remember, that's per week, not per month. So that could be a significant increase to your unemployment claim. I mentioned, yes, March 29th and through July 31st. So again, this is for business owners, self-employed individuals, independent contractors. And one question that we have received a lot of is, if you are not a citizen in the United States, you cannot be paid unemployment benefits unless you are legally permitted to work in the U.S. at the time that the services were performed and the claims that you're making. So you have to be eligible during the complete time that you're receiving benefits to work in the U.S. So you have to demonstrate that you can legally work here. Otherwise, there is not a path to pandemic unemployment assistance UI benefits for you. Okay, so here are a few quick things that are important to note. The fastest way to apply for PUI is online through their portal. They do have a separate UI, pandemic unemployment assistance page. It looks like you're going right back to the regular UI page, but start on the pandemic unemployment assistance page. It's the best advice I can give you. If you apply, and again, apologies, I promise candor on this, like the best advice we were given at the time was, if you were self-employed, to just apply for unemployment insurance. And unfortunately, when this new system was built for self-employed individuals, they did not consider the other self-employed individuals that had applied on the old portal waiting to get unemployment insurance. So apologies for that. You must reapply if you applied prior to 4/28 as a self-employed individual, not as a W-2 employee. you must reapply on this new portal. And again, sorry, I know it's not fun to go through that again, but that is what you must do. The 13-week, there's a 13-week extension, but that doesn't apply to this because it's woven into the program. Again, your benefit dates are set between February 2nd and December 31st, up to 39 weeks. There's no waiting period for this. There's typically a waiting period there's typically a 1-week waiting period to claim unemployment benefits, but there is not on this. Claims are automatically backdated to the Sunday prior to the first date the claimant was directly impacted by COVID-19. So remember, get your calendar out, look at how your wages and hours were reduced, and start making those calculations. For California, most people were impacted in mid-March, and that's what we're seeing most of the claims as starting in mid-March. So that's something to make sure that you're aware of. The minimum weekly benefit amount is $167. So even if you even if you weren't making anything, if you just started a business and you didn't, or you had intermittent pay due to the nature of your work, the minimum you can receive per week is $167. And it's different by state if you're listening in from another state, for example, but everyone gets this $167. Additionally, everyone will receive this extra $600 per week during those weeks of March, from at the end of March to July. You will be required to claim or report your 2019 net income when filing. And if you don't have that because you haven't processed your taxes yet, an estimate is fine. To be considered for a higher wage for unemployment assistance, up to $450. That's what a regular W-2 employee has, that threshold of $450. You must verify your income, and documentation will be required. I don't know what that would be yet, other than a profit and loss statement. That is a question for the EDD. I mentioned the $600 a week stimulus. To expedite processing payments, they are automatically certifying all claims ending between 3/14 and 5/9, which is pretty extraordinary. This means that they will go back and recertify that those claims are, I believe that they'll go back and recertify that those claims are accurate. So please don't try and scam the system, but that's pretty remarkable that they're pushing this through so quickly. The last thing is that the payments will be made through the EDD debit card, and you should allow at least 5 business days to receive that in the mail. That's how they're issuing payment now. I remember when it was good old school checks, and now we're on to debit cards. Welcome to 2020 EDD. Good job. Okay, so the SBA loan options. We're going to talk about the SBA Paycheck Protection Program and the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan. I won't mention the SBA Bridge Loan today. Apologies on that. We will get into both of these programs in greater detail now. I just want to ensure you, the reason we're going through this again is because if and when EIDL does become available again to apply to, I want you to have that information. It's at the end of, anyway, if you don't want to listen to that, you don't have to listen. But getting back to the Paycheck Protection Program, be advised that as of Monday, this program was opened again. And what we encouraged people to do was check immediately with their bank to see if they were a 7A lender. I know a lot of you had a really hard time accessing lending institutions that were willing to take on new clients, or you were told that you couldn't get, didn't have access to the program because you didn't have a business line of credit with the bank. I'm so sorry. My phone line and my work, my entire life has for the last month and a half been dedicated to answering those questions for a lot of you. And I'm so sorry that it's taken, this program has been really difficult in its rollout. It is available for small businesses and sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals. I've also heard that banks have told self-employed individuals that they can't apply. That's not true. You know, the funding for this program ran out in essentially 2 weeks. And so because it began on Monday, we've been encouraging people to apply. The purpose of this loan program, remember, is employee retention. And I just want to mention that for a second. The purpose of this loan program was for employee retention. If you're a business owner and you are trying to apply for PPP as a way to augment your own income, which if you're a W-2 employee, that's fine, or use it for an additional loan or loan capital, I would remind you that this was intended to this money is intended to rehire workers that you had to previously lay off, or to keep employees retained. And I'll explain why that's important in a few minutes. For eligibility, as I mentioned, all small businesses, including nonprofits for this one, which was remarkable because most often nonprofits are excluded from federal loans. So 501c3s, 501c19s, tribal organizations, sole proprietors, etc. All that on the screen. Any business with fewer than 500 employees. Now there is a question and answer guide on the on the SBA's website regarding this program. If you are part of an affiliate organization that makes your head count, employee count over 500, I would encourage you to look at that. There are different rules for affiliate organizations or affiliate businesses. But for the most part, this program was designed to serve non-publicly traded businesses with fewer than 500 employees. The maximum loan amount is up to 10 million. And remember that these are loans that are designed to be fully forgiven if the costs are used to support payroll and other designated business operating expenses in the 8 weeks following the date of the original loan origination. That's really important. The loan will be fully forgiven if said funds are used for payroll costs, interest, mortgages, utilities, and at least 75% of that money is used for payroll purposes, and the rest for eligible expenses. Key features: the interest rate is at 1%. It matures at 2 years. The first payment is deferred by 6 months. It's 100% guaranteed by the SBA. No collateral is required, no personal guarantees. One would think just by looking at this list that it would have been super easy to get access to this program, and we know that that hasn't been the case for a lot of people. So there are no borrower or lender fees made payable to the SBA. Now, one thing to mention here is that I know that there are different lending institutions, non-traditional lending institutions that have gained access to this program in a positive way, that have been distributing money. PayPal is a good example of that, and PayPal hasn't done this, so I'm not suggesting that they have. But you want to be careful if you're approaching a non-traditional lending institution that they are not charging you for this program, because there shouldn't be an additional charge. It was meant to be set up as a no-charge program. There's no origination fee or lender fees made payable to the SBA, but some third parties that are managing this loan program are charging origination fees or administrative fees. So be careful of that. And I've already mentioned that. Check first with your bank to see if you're a lender. So we're going to go back to PPP in a little bit, and I know a lot of people will have quite a few questions on that, but I want to mention the disaster, economic injury disaster loan, and address that before we go back to PPP. The U.S. Small Business Administration, if you've been in Ventura, Santa Barbara County at all in the last 3 years, are probably very familiar with this loan. As a business owner, it is the standard EIDL economic injury disaster loan made available for businesses during disruption. Now, a couple things were extended in this or a couple additional things were added to this disaster loan. One, they included an upfront payment of up to a $10,000 grant to successful applicants. Now, this later became known as a grant for how many employees that you have in your business, because they defined or determined how much you were to receive the $10,000 based on how many employees that you had. So if you're a sole proprietor, reset your expectation that you will get probably $1,000. But for the most part, we've seen this consistent across the board, that the clients that we've talked to that received this upfront payment, their head count at the time of applying for the loan is exactly the amount of money that they received. If they had 6 employees, they got $6,000, 9 employees, $9,000, etc. So be aware of that. This loan may also be used to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills. And one thing to mention now that we've gone through, again, as I mentioned, started saying before, I went through the Thomas fire and Hill Woolsey fires and worked with a lot of individuals on their, working with them on their disaster loan, and I saw different terms than some of the terms here. When the SBA offers this loan, you are not asking a couple things. You are not asking for a specific amount of money. So for those of you who maybe applied and thought I could ask for $75,000 or whatever, that it doesn't work that way with this loan. You are providing the SBA information, and if you fill that application and you are in the queue, good, because at this point they're only serving those in the queue on a first come first serve basis. That may change, but we are not aware of any change to that yet. They will determine the amount of loan capital that they will give to you. And during the Thomas fire, I saw very different terms. These up to 2 million, up to 30 years, 3 and 0.75% interest for small businesses. That type of loan, like people's loans look very different. I had a client that had a $200,000 loan, and her terms were set at 15 years. And I had another client that had, I think, a $75,000 loan, and her term was set at 30 years. So they have their own financial experts that are going to determine what makes sense for the business. It might not make sense to you when you receive your paperwork, but that's how they determine, or that is in their prerogative to determine what your loan amount and what your term will be. I also want to mention that I know that for a lot of you, at least that I've talked to, the loan amount that you are anticipating is not the loan you receive. And for that, I'm very sorry. This loan and the money dedicated to this loan product went incredibly quickly. And essentially, anyone who was making an application to this for this program, they were applying with the rest of the country. I mean, imagine the demand on the system, and not just that, but the money that was appropriated for each of these programs. So if that's your scenario and you need to reimagine a future that's going to look a little bit more narrow, considering the funding that you received, I encourage you to meet with one of our financial advisors. And I'm going to keep harping on that until the end of our time together today. So the filing deadline for an economic injury loan is December 16th. Well, that doesn't really apply anymore, does it? Because they're not accepting applications. But let's say we get additional funding for this program. That was the initial filing deadline date for this program. So I'm hopeful that there may be more money coming in some other way. I don't know, maybe another stimulus package, not necessarily for these programs, but for additional checks in the mail. I'm not sure, but know that is how the SBA at the moment is managing PPP and the EIDL loan. I did create a preparation funding guide, a federal funding preparation guide that's on our website, how to prepare for PPP and EIDL. And I think for some of you that that may be still in the paycheck protection application process, you might want to check that out. It's on our website. It's clearly listed. But it's going to answer questions like, I've applied with my bank. They're not getting back to me. They're giving me the runaround. What do I do? I've been declined by a bank. What do I do? And give also examples of several different lending institutions. Lendio is a good one. I just talked with a client yesterday who was approved via Lendio for $65,000 for PPP. So that happened really quickly. He applied on Monday, and he's supposed to get his funding today. So be aware that that is on our website at edcollaborative.com/COVID-19. This Express Bridge loan, I'll mention this quickly. Sorry, I forgot to take this off, but for anyone that already has a relationship with a lender, with an SBA lender, if you had a prior SBA loan, and I'm not talking about a disaster loan, I'm not talking about PPP, I'm talking about you wanted to start a business, the SBA gave you $50,000, and you have a relationship with a banker. The SBA still has on their website that this Express Bridge loan is available to you up to $25,000. What you would need to do is reconnect with the banker that you were working with, and ask them, what is the process to apply for this bridge loan? And it's called a bridge loan very specifically because it's meant to be a bridge to other resources like the economic injury loan. So it's still on their website. If you happen to be in the small majority who have a relationship with one of the SBA lenders at a bank, go for it and ask them if that's still available to you. Locally, we have 2 disaster loan funds that I want to mention. Our EDC disaster loan fund is only available for those in Santa Barbara and Ventura County. Sorry for anyone who is in San Luis Obispo County that may be watching. But we have our own loan fund from $5,000 to $50,000 at 4.25% interest, all designed to give businesses a cash flow boost during this period of time. And traditionally, I mean, in other disasters, it was actually set up again to be like a bridge loan to other resources. But we know that more demand is going to be put on local resources given the exhaustion of some of these other federal products. So because of that, we are looking for additional capital. We do not lend SBA money. So I've said that before, but I just want to make that very clear. This money, for the most part, is private capital that's been given to us by different foundations. And so for that reason, we're looking for people that are in business, that are currently conducting business, that have a cash flow, that have retained their employees, because these loans for us are a little more risky, as you may imagine. This is at 4.25% interest, 48-month terms, and for the first 3 months pay interest only. The first 3 months are interest only. So for Women's Economic Ventures, they have a loan fund now, which I think is over $1 million, which is really amazing. And they're accepting applications for loans up to quick loans up to $10,000. So they have a 36-month repayment schedule, and they're set at 4.5% interest. So I would encourage you to visit Weave's website. They have a considerable loan fund, and they've received a lot of applications, but just receiving up to $10,000 can help for a week and a half for some of our clients. So, I get this question all the time, and this is the question that has kept me up nights, and the next slide coming up. Which option is best for me? There's no point in hesitating anymore when you are considering applying. I encourage everyone to apply for both the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. Of course, when you receive both, that creates other issues, and I'll go over that in a moment. But they're meant to cover different expenses. And I just want you to hear, though, that when and if EIDL becomes available, or PPP, or you're waiting to find out if you've received both or neither, you can accept both. So don't deny one over the other. The reason for this is because you can return money that you've received via PPP and or EIDL directly back to the lender or the SBA without incurring any charge. So because we don't know how long this is going to last, and I'm suggesting months, not weeks, like we need to really reset our expectations of when the economy and when people are going to want to reinvest in the economy, what this next phase is going to look like for us, take both. Because if you don't use it, all you need to do is return it. And there's no harm in taking money and repaying it if you don't need to use it. The SBA's, we know, the SBA's economic injury loan provides up to $10,000 grant. So some of you have already been in receipt of that, which is great. Really look into EDD's WORKSHARE program. We have we have an advisor that more or less specializes a little bit more than I do in the EDD's WORKSHARE program. And I would encourage you, if you're interested in that, to call our center and ask for Megan Cullen, ask for an appointment with her, because it might be a good solution as you re-enter the work, as you scale up your work staff and production and all that again, or if you have to scale down, if you're at a place where you're actually scaling down. And last, we all know this, sorry to everyone, even the banks, the PPP program is still being worked out. And this is important to consider because let's say you get the PPP program. And I'm mentioning this just again to reset expectations. Maybe that should be the theme of 2020, reset your expectation over everything. God, did anyone ever anticipate this? The next webinar we're doing is called "I Received Federal Funding, Now What?" Because this is really the question that everyone is asking us right now. Or I haven't received federal funding, now what? What do I do? And it's an excellent question, because as I mentioned, the Paycheck Protection Program is still being worked out. I mean, that's the reality. The loan forgiveness structure and how what lending institutions are asking for clarification on what you spent money on what date, etc. What you did with your employees. You had 5 employees, now you have 2. What happened? Did you send them to Hansel and Gretel and they went to Grandma in the woods? Like, what happened there? So you have to clarify all of that, and it's really, really important to connect with someone to do that for you. And I would again encourage you to meet with one of our financial advisors. It's totally free to you, and we can sit down and look at your cash flow, look at how you're structuring your payments, etc. Because remember, PPP and EIDL funds are meant to be used differently. You cannot use the PPP funds for payroll and also the EIDL funds for payroll during the same period of time. Remember, PPP is to be spent immediate 8 weeks after the date of the receipt of the money. So that's like, that's like tomorrow. So you want to make sure that you're really clean and clear in your accounting. Did I say this? Have you clarified the loan forgiveness structure with the lending institution you've received money from? This is really important. Do you know what that looks like? Because I can tell you right now, there are many different answers I'm getting from different lending institutions. And we're still waiting for complete guidelines from the SBA on what that loan forgiveness structure will actually look like. Adding to that, there's also going to be additional training that's required by the SBA to the lending institution, or if they involve a third party, or who knows what they're going to do to ensure that those loans become forgiven. And so it's on your shoulders as the business owner, a lot of this, to take responsibility and ownership over how you are communicating your accounting moves with this program. We want to make sure that everyone who has received communication and guidance from us about this program walks away with 100% forgivable loan. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But what I want you to know is that there are resources available to you, so you don't have to do this on your own. Have you asked your employees to return to work? So, like I said before, we have had I just spent an hour talking with a business owner last week, or yesterday. His employees won't come back to work because guess what? They're making more money sitting on the couch, probably eating Doritos, than coming back to his office. That's really unfortunate. They're making more money on unemployment than they can by just getting their paycheck replaced. I'm sorry. I think PPP was a great idea in theory, and then yet there are these loopholes and ways that people can get around. This is a real issue that some of our employers are facing. If that is you, I would like to talk with you offline about how you might create a scenario where your employees are able to come back to work and or they are required to come back to work. Now, you can't force them at all, but I want to give you more specifics around that issue because it's a little delicate. It's a delicate issue, and I want to be careful in speaking that, to speak about that publicly. Again, have you also received EIDL? Remember, all of these loan products are not meant to be used to fund the same expenses, to pay the same expenses. So you've got to be careful there. EIDL, here's a question. I have received, I think, this isn't a question, more of a statement. I have received, I think, my upfront grant request. Why? Because I woke up in the morning and got a $3,000 deposit into my bank account and I have no clue where it came from. I mean, I've heard that so often because they didn't get a letter from the SBA, they didn't get a letter from, you know, whoever. Where did this $3,000 come from? It's probably your EIDL upfront loan request. That's a grant to you, probably. Stranger things have happened. I've never had money appear in my bank account yet. I'd like that to happen though someday. But the point is that probably is that SBA EIDL grant. So don't worry, but be aware that that money is to be treated as a grant. And I also, you know, again, for the sake of candor, I'm answering this question as I think that's what it is. I hope that's what it is. I'm 99.9% positive that's what it is. But I'd like you to get a letter from the SBA clarifying what that is first before you use it. I know that's not going to be possible for everyone listening to this broadcast. So, because you have expenses that I'm not aware of. But yeah, this rollout has been messy and bumpy. When will I receive notice of my loan? Excellent question, because $3,000 just showed up in your account and now you're like, where's my loan? So we're hearing from the SBA that it could take 3 to 4 weeks to hear from a loan officer. And that is what we're hearing from them. Now, again, that could be less time, it could be more time, we don't know. And I hope I'm not sounding trite or dismissive, but in some of these situations, you just gotta laugh because they're, you know, the answers are, you know, where are they? I don't know. If I had $1 for every question I could answer right now, I would be a very wealthy woman. I have received PPP and EIDL. What should I do? Hands down, you got to connect with one of our advisors. Definitely, it's not even a question. You want to make sure that your accounting, unless you're a CFO and you know, like a good friend of mine, and he knows all the accounting rules and back ins and outs and all that. You want to make sure that your funding, your payments, and all of that is very clean and clear. So when you go back in to seek that loan forgiveness, that it's 100% clear and not questioned, and you walk out with a forgivable loan. Okay. Lastly, remember, I've been referring to our services this entire time. We offer no-cost consulting services. We are partially federally funded. We're a public-private partnership, but in terms of our federal funding arm, our SBA is one of our partners, as well as the Small Business Development Center. So through our Small Business Development Center, we offer essentially any area of counseling in every area of business need. And I would encourage you to call today to set up an appointment, 805-409-9159. You can also check out our website. The number is on our website as well, but call our website call our number and connect with a business advisor, or check out our website. We have been maintaining a guide, an economic injury and relief guide, business resources for nonprofits, self-employed, and employers. And I would encourage you to check that out. There's a lot of this information in there. Some of it can be overwhelming. We've divided it into sections to make it as less complicated as possible. But that is a guide that's available to you, and we update that regularly. It's also available in Spanish. And the PPP versus EIDL side-by-side comparison, I don't know if I referred to that. We do have that on our website available in English and Spanish. And thank you to Emily and her team to help me put that together. It really does give a really good overview. If you've received funding from either one of these programs, print out that document and study it, because it has a lot of the things that you just need to know about how these programs work. That's really important. Lastly, my name again is Claire Brilio. I'm the Communications and Business Disruption Resource Director on a good day for the Economic Development Collaborative. And our line that you can call to speak to a business advisor is 409-9159. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to look towards Emily, who I hope
I'm here.
Is here. Thank you for your support.
Yes, and I want to say thank you to everyone who's having great patience with me as I ask you clarifying questions and then ask you to repost it 17 times. I really appreciate you. I answered the easy ones, and then we let Claire handle the hard ones. And also, we've answered 28 questions already, so before you post a question, check out those answered questions to see if we've already gotten to it. All right, has the state of California determined if they will or will not consider taxable PPP and EIDL loans and grants amounts that are forgiven and non-taxable by the IRS? So will the federal government be taxing PPP and EIDL forgiveness amounts, and will the state of California be taxing it?
I believe there has been some clarity on that. I don't have that information ready at the moment, but that's a really good question. We've been asking that ourselves. Someone who may know is one of our business advisors, and so if you call in to the number that I just gave you, Emily, if you can add that to the chat as well, or the Q&A, wherever we're keeping that. And ask to speak to an advisor, tell them that that's the information you're looking for.
Good. I think I heard that California is taxing it, but not federal. But yeah, I mean, especially if you're in this position of receiving both, your next step is to meet up with an EDC advisor. So yeah, get on it, Rick. You've got homework. Okay, I registered on the EDD site to file unemployment benefits. I chose an image and personal phrase. The next time I went to the site, it didn't show up on the screen, yet it won't let me change them, so I continue filing my claim. So it sounds like technical issue on the EDD site.
Yeah, and I don't know what day that was done, but if it was done yesterday or today, I'm still hearing of people who can't get through today, and I'm hearing of people who could get through today. So I think we're just gonna have to give that some more time. You can always call them, know that you're gonna be on hold for quite some time, but go about your housework or do whatever you want to do. But that's an EDD question.
Thank you. And I know there was a question later down in the Q&A. Someone was hearing that the EDD phone was just hanging up on people, and I think the answer is they are completely overwhelmed, phone and website and email, and you just have to keep trying, which sucks.
Yes, that is the answer.
Next question. If I underestimated my original PPP loan amount because the form did not say to include health insurance, can I submit for supplemental amount, and if so, how?
That's a bank question to your lender, and I would try and do that now. Don't waste any time doing that. I haven't heard of someone, I've heard that question before. I haven't heard what the result has been, but it really depends on the relationship you have with your lending institution. So please refer to them.
Yeah, and the one that I'm hearing a lot is I underestimated it because I'm the owner and I didn't include my owner's draws. So is there a different answer if that's the case?
No, not to my knowledge. I mean, it's really going to be dependent on the relationship that you have with your lending institution. So if you didn't as an owner, what I would say, if you didn't as an owner and then you find that you can't pay yourself as an owner, start applying for unemployment, because you can still apply for that. But I have heard that too. I don't know why the forms were so confusing. It's been unnecessary confusion. So I feel for business owners who don't have coverage right now.
Well, and the overarching answer for PPP is talk to your lender, because yes, this is SBA money. However, it's being administered individually by these lenders, and they're filling in some of the nuances.
That's correct.
Another PPP question. Can I use PPP for phone and internet?
It does include amount for utilities. So that would, and again, I'm saying this as a yes, but I know that some PPP lenders haven't allowed for the application of anything but payroll expenses.
Yeah, and just for myself, I used my PPP to cover phone and internet yesterday. I'm tracking all my expenses, and the answer is we're going to have to figure it out, because we're what's that phrase, building the plane as we fly it. So Michelle, if it were, I did keep track of things, and we're just going to have to figure it out as the program gets built out. Any idea what the forgiveness calculations are if you do not rehire everyone back? They said the forgiveness will be reduced, but by how much and under what terms?
So I will speak to this generally, and it's an excellent question. It's an excellent question. Remember, 100% of this was meant to be forgiven. So I don't think that I believe, I'm a little bit of an idealist, but I do believe that I don't think that there's going to be auditors looking to ways that they can't forgive loans. I think they're going to be more or less looking for ways that they can forgive loans. So in the case of your employee count not being the same, the idea was you have the same amount of employees the day you apply and receive the money, or sorry, not the day you receive the money, because you had to lay them off. The day that you go back in and ask for forgiveness is the same, matches the application that you gave them that said I had 6 employees and I had $100,000. 6 employees, $100,000, 6 employees, $100,000 in expenses. 75% of those expenses, so $75,000, are supposed to be for payroll related. The other 25% is the other. So if you went back in and said, I could only hire 3, and therefore, I'm making this more confusing because I used 100,000, but I could only rehire 3. So it's half of the payroll expense. I only incurred half of the payroll expense and cost, and I paid that out. That portion of the loan would be forgiven. In my mind, though, I would want to make sure that if the bank also allowed me to apply for my utilities and all those other expenses, that I was going back in and saying, here's 75% in payroll, and here's 75% paid as a portion of my utilities and expenses and things that I could account for. And the rest of the money that I didn't use, I would return.
Great.
If that doesn't make sense, please let me know.
Yeah, so Jenny, if you need more clarification, just repost your question. If we are lucky enough to be approved for PPP, how do we notify other lenders that we've applied with? So if you made multiple applications and then someone approves you.
Yeah, okay, so in general, we were, well, it doesn't matter anymore. If you get approved by one lender, that's amazing. Yeah, you're gonna need to go back and inform all lenders that you applied for to that you received the money, because they were advising from the beginning that you apply to one vendor only, wait to hear. If you get denied, Or if you get the runaround, you withdraw your application and then go somewhere else. So.
I've never heard anyone ask this, Jenny. How do you cancel unemployment benefits? I didn't meet the eligibility the first time, but now they automatically certify since the website is inconsistent, and now I'm being sent benefits despite ever qualifying.
I don't know. She didn't apply? I'm confused. I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Well, so I'm picking up on this automatically certified. So you had mentioned that, I think, for unemployment.
Yes, that's if you made an application. So they go through a process of certification to make sure that you're eligible to receive benefits. They're not just sending checks to anyone in the mail. I mean, anyone. They're not just sending out checks in the mail to everyone. So I don't know if I'm answering the question right, but you have to make an application in order to receive benefits.
Well, so Jenny, repost again if you need more clarification. I think the answer is call the EDD. If you don't think you qualify for the money that's showing up, don't spend it because you'll probably have to give it back.
Yeah,
as a self-employed sole proprietor, not a corporation, what expenses, payments to myself, etc., do I need to track to qualify PPP forgiveness?
So that is, again, a bank question, and we've had that. It's a really good question, especially for those who work out of their home. Can I, as a portion of my mortgage, my rent, whatever it is, utilities, all that, the bank needs to give you a form to track what those expenses are. And I would be doing it, as a sole proprietor, because I have experience in this. I would track all that as I would for my own taxes. At the end of every year, I track on a spreadsheet utilities and a mortgage and all that, and square footage of the space that I'm using and all that in my home. And that's how I would do it. But the bank should give you more guidance there.
And so if, as a self-employed person, if I haven't applied for PPP yet, and I obviously don't have any employees, might it be better to file for PUA? Or
no, because for the most part, unless you are, it depends. It depends on your income. If you can estimate that it's a gamble. I mean, well, let me say this. You could do both. Because you could apply for PPP, get it, whatever that is for you. Let's say it's less than unemployment insurance. You have to factor in you would get the $600 extra between the end of March and the end of July. So if you just got to look at both programs and kind of work it out on a spreadsheet, and you could apply for both. As it's eligible to you, but you might get more depending on what your business was bringing in one program or another.
And you can't double use the funds. So if you're paying yourself as a self-employed person, or if you're getting paid by unemployment as a self-employed person and you get PPP, you can't pay yourself twice.
Yeah, exactly. You can't pay yourself twice, and I'll just say that you're supposed to be certifying every week or bi-weekly that you are looking for work, or your work didn't change, or you didn't receive money from any other source, or etc. So unless you don't want to lie on those applications, I'll tell you that right now. You don't want to mess with the EDD. It's like messing with the IRS. You don't want to do that. And I'm sure that there'll be people that fall through the cracks in this whole situation, but I would claim complete honesty in these situations here.
Well, and I had answered a question on the back end. We've been recommending that people put any money that they get into a dedicated account. So one dedicated account for PPP and one for EIDL. And the question was, okay, yeah, but do I really have to do that? No, you don't have to. And we're seeing such high subscription for these programs. I anticipate that we're going to have a lot of scrutiny. And you don't want to mess with the EDD.
Well, yeah, you don't have to do that. I talked with someone yesterday about that same issue. The PPP and EIDL situation and not mixing the two funds is a little bit more critical to keep a separate account for. But I've done payroll before. I know it's a pain in the rear to reconfigure all that payroll and put, payroll expenses coming out of a separate account. I get that. So I wouldn't want to do that. But for someone who's a sole proprietor who's just paying themselves, out of one account, it's not that hard to do that unless you're working with paychecks and, and then you have to redo the whole mess. That's a pain. But you just want to be clean and clear as possible with your income sources and expense tracking when you go to seek forgiveness or when you go to use this money in any sort of way. I'm going to throw one thing more in here. So I had a conversation with, I don't know, it might have been with you, Emily, about a PPP or an EIDL advance that was being used currently to pay for payroll because that's what they needed. And because their PPP hadn't come through yet. They were approved, but they hadn't been approved, but they hadn't received the money yet. Remember, in that situation, because it was a grant, you can use that. You can use that money for however you choose to use it. It's a grant, but you want to be really clear too that as of this date, I stopped using maybe this grant money and I started using PPP just for payroll. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think so we mentioned it already, but starting next week, we're doing a different webinar series. I got money, now what? And so we are learning new information and new best practices and new nuances every single day. And so we're going to shift the focus of this webinar to answer those more nuanced questions. And so stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we've got 12 minutes left. So we're going to try and burn through these. So is there a deadline for PUA?
Is there a deadline for PUA?
A deadline to apply.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on that right now. When was it's in the slides. Let me get your email and I'll email you.
All right, Brian, make a note. Frank Perez. Okay, I have a small W-2 income, applied for and received 83 per week in UI. I did indicate my self-employment income, but it was not considered. I've tried to apply for PUA, but the portal indicates that since she already received UI, she can't get both.
This is a problem. And I think that I've heard this enough now. I think this is probably the fourth time I've heard this, that the EDD is going to need to respond to, because we have people with multiple streams of income and they're going to have to address it.
So stick tight, Angela.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot of this, so just stick tight. I received PPP. I have about 20 staff that are collecting unemployment. What is my window of time that I need to bring them all back to stand a chance of forgiveness?
The money should be spent within 8 weeks of the distribution. So when you receive that PPP loan, the rehire needed to happen. The money is supposed to be spent within that 8 weeks of that 8-week window.
Great. What is the difference between a sole proprietor and self-employed?
In my mind, there's no difference. Why the federal government keeps making this distinction, I don't know. I'm sure there's something I'm not getting there, but I refer to them as the same.
Great.
Sorry, let me say this. You could be self-employed and own and be incorporated, right? You can be self-employed and be incorporated. A sole proprietor, but you cannot be a sole proprietor and be incorporated. A sole proprietor is a single entity. I'm a single person doing business as Claire Brelio. So there you go.
So sole proprietor is a incorporation. It's not an incorporation status. It's a oh, my words just left me. It's an organizational status.
It's an organizational status of one single person.
Good, thank you. Patricia, I see your question. I think we just answered it. You got to just hold tight and we'll know more soon. What is the process for applying for PPP forgiveness?
It's a great question. That's what we're talking about today. We don't know yet. So
we don't know, it depends. Track everything. Track
we
it,
don't
track
know. It depends. We sound really smart right now, don't we? I'm so sorry.
You're very smart.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, I own an S Corp and W-2 myself through the company. I pay myself a small salary. I filed for UI at the end of March. I'd essentially laid myself off. As of last week, I'm receiving UI. Should I somehow change to pandemic, or am I fine with what I'm receiving now?
I think because you said a salary, I'm assuming you're receiving a paycheck via W-2,
Yep,
or are you taking a draw?
She's a W-2 of her S Corp.
Oh, she's a W-2 of her. Yes, you did the right thing. So this, well.
But it has to be true. So if Becky, if you are still working, then I think you have, if you say that you laid yourself off, then you have to have really laid yourself off and not be working.
Well, so that's a good question. And I don't have clarity yet from that on the EDD side, because we have a lot of, we do have quite a few people, business owners who are still working. They're just not taking any sort of,
they're just not paying themselves.
They're not paying themselves. So they need to still work, but they can't pay themselves. I think someone else had that example before where they applied for a PPP loan, but they didn't include themselves. And I said, well, if you can't pay yourself, then apply for unemployment. This is Claire's opinion. I think that person needs to have a conversation with the EDD. And I'll tell you that we ran across this situation during the Thomas fire, and it went all the way to kind of an appeals court kind of scenario in EDD court, not like real court, because the business owner was continuing to work but couldn't afford to pay themselves. This is a normal scenario that a lot of business owners face, depending on, if there's a downturn or their sales weren't good 1 month or whatever it is. This is normal during times of disruption. So we need to have more clarity from the EDD on how that is handled. I wouldn't suggest that she go apply on the PUA side, because she was able to get through on the other side.
Yep. So here, this person is confused on one of the PUA questions. Are you currently self-employed, have your own business, or work as an independent contractor, or plan to become self-employee if you're impacted by COVID-19 pandemic? Click no. So
yeah,
go ahead.
The question is, should they click no?
I'm not sure. Andrea, I'm sorry. If you could repost your question with a little more detail.
She added that it's confusing because it says to say no when you in fact are self-employed.
Yeah, I just got an answer to that question, and I'm looking at my email. Sorry. Okay, here we go. If you are today. Yes, be sure you answer no. So say that again, because if you answered no, then it sounds like, say the question again.
Are you currently self-employed, parentheses, have your own business or work as an independent contractor, or plan to become a self-employed if you are impacted by COVID-19 pandemic? Click no.
That is the most poorly worded. Let's follow up.
Andrea, we'll follow up.
Yeah, don't listen to what I just said. Let's follow up with a conversation.
Yep. For PPP, I'm an officer of a corporation. Can the company pay me as a W-2 employee with part of the funds? I only take salary once or twice a year. We would also hire back as many employees as we can.
The officer question escapes me right now. It is on the SBA.gov website regarding PPP and specific payments for officers. And I'm sorry to direct you there, but I cannot remember off the top of my head.
Great.
You want to be careful with that, though.
I started my business in 2019. It's an LLC. Due to build-out costs, I have been living off savings and haven't paid myself yet. So it appears I don't qualify for PUA. What should I do?
Since 2019?
Yeah, she started late 2019 and it's a retail store.
I would apply. What's the deal? I don't understand. Sorry.
Yeah, so Dina, I think the answer is apply. Well, because I think she doesn't have W-2 income to account for unemployment, like to be the base.
But she's applying as a self-employed individual, right? For PUA?
Yeah, so Dina, if you applied and got rejected, let us know. And if you haven't applied, then apply.
Apply on the PUA side.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we've got.
Because let me just explain that one thing. The PUA premium that was given to all self-employed individuals, $167 per week. That wasn't like a random number that they came up with. That was a benefit that they decided gig economy workers, self-employed individuals, intermittent workers that didn't have a consistent W-2 income were eligible to receive as a result of the CARES Act. So it's functioning differently than regular unemployment. And I just want to mention that because it's like, it's not based on prior year earnings. That's a base that you are entitled to receive. So apply.
Good. And so Brianne, we only have 2 minutes left, and Brianne tells me there are a few questions about PUA net income requirements. So can you talk a little bit about that? I'm seeing some people who are self-employed and after expenses, their net income is close to zero.
Yeah, I cannot answer those questions individually for you because you're going to have to go through the process of applying online to get to what's frustrating to me, I don't know if this is happening, but they should be looking at your gross as much as they're looking at your net. So we're business owners. We know like the closer to zero on the net means less tax liability, right? So it doesn't make sense to me to take only your net income.
Sorry, I muted myself because my dog wanted to answer a question.
Yeah.
I have a small business partnership with an EIN and was approved for PPP, but I also have nominal W-2 income from 2019 in the EDD system and also 1099 income paid to my Social Security. How do I apply for all of it and not count as double dipping or create a problem? So how do I apply for PPP, UI, and PUA?
So PPP, you're going to apply for and see if you just get it, number one. If you do get it, then you're going to have, and you get unemployment insurance at the same time, you're going to have to clarify on the form, I'm getting these payments, and then your benefits will be stopped for a certain period of time, and then you can reopen it. But the question still is outstanding. How do I claim W-2 benefits and UI benefits or PUI benefits at the same time? I don't know that answer yet. So we're going to have to get clarity on that, and I will include that in next week's webinar. Hopefully we'll have an answer by then.
Tune in to Claire TV next week. Okay, friends, we have answered 51 questions and there are still 29 open, and we are at the end of our time. And so I'm sorry, we are keeping track of all of the questions. We're working, and we're using that to inform the guide that Claire updates about every 15 minutes that's on the EDC website. And so we've got your questions and we're doing our best to answer them as we get more information. And the answers go in the guide.
Yes, for the most part. For a lot of your questions, though, I would also encourage you to call 409-9159 and ask to speak to a business advisor. You'll connect with our intake team. They'll ask you a number of questions about what you're looking for. If it's just a one-time question, fine. But if you want to enroll in our services and connect with a business advisor, please do. And if they are SBA or PPP, EIDL, or EDV related, remember we can only offer so much help. So try them as well. And thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it. Apologies again for all the confusion around what on earth was happening with that webinar this morning. I got up way too early and started working way too early. So that's it from me. Emily?
No, we're good to go. Thank you guys for being here. Hang in there. Hang in there.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks,
We'll see you
everyone.
next week.